What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Recher Reacts. Happy Sunday night, everybody. I am your host, Jay Recher. Make sure you follow me on all social media platforms. You see it there at the bottom of the screen on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube. Go check me out there, and especially on my YouTube channel. Like and subscribe. We're going to talk bunch of different things on the program tonight. But listen, AEW All In 2024. That was the big event of the day. You know, you're going to get a little bit of everything here on Retro Reacts. It isn't the same old that you're going to get. Uh, the biggest stories for me that I'm going to dive deep into. So we'll start with AEW All In 2024, a 4-hour show for All Elite Wrestling at Wembley Stadium. And it was an incredible event. We'll get into that. Also, the latest cuts from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, trimming down the roster. A bunch of guys, 18 of them to be exact, cut today by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We'll go over that in a little bit, as well as showing some love to Lake Mary Little League for winning the Little League World Series today in a thrilling game against Chinese Taipei, Taiwan. Wow, drama out of the wazoo. An incredible comeback at the end and a walk-off victory. It was a blast, and there were so many people tuned in. It was at just such a nice part of the day where there really wasn't too much other things on. I know the Rays were on as well as they fell in the third game of their series against the Los Angeles Dodgers, but there was a lot of people tuned in. If you're looking and you're watching on social media, they were watching the Little League World Series, and to see Lake Mary come home with the championship, first team in Florida. It sounds surreal, right? First team in Florida to win the Little League World Series. Our hat goes off to Lake Mary, but we'll get into that here momentarily. Again, follow me on all social media platforms. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, the best way to get them in here is either Facebook or YouTube. We are streaming to Twitter here as well, but head on over to Facebook and YouTube on both of my channels at Jay Retcher, and you can let me know your questions, your comments, your concerns. And especially, I want to hear your favorite moment or your favorite match from AEW All In, because there was a lot of good. And we'll get right into it. It's been a rough go when it comes to ticket sales and a lack of house shows when it comes to AEW. And I've been watching since day one. Still a very young company, but competition is good. And what Tony Khan's been able to do with All Elite Wrestling and bringing in so many different big names and having guys really establish the credibility early on, like Chris Jericho, like John Moxley, like Cody Rhodes, Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, it's good. It's good for the business. It's good to have an alternative to the WWE. It's good for these wrestlers to be able to go and have another place to ply their trade where they don't have to go overseas to do so, and they can still make some good money. But with that being said, I think the storytelling's been lacking. The lack of cohesion and consistency is something that has really left a lot to be desired. I still watch it, I still tune in, but it's hard to keep track even for somebody that follows the product on a weekly basis. But with all of that being said, I thought they hit an absolute home run. Uh, AEW All In 2024 again at Wembley Stadium there in London, England. And let's start right from the top. We'll recap the whole damn thing. The trios, titles, ladder match. The Bang Bang Gang, House of Black, the Patriarchy, BCC. Still kind of wondering why they went the direction of this kind of makeshift trios tag team with Claudio Castagnoli and Pac and Wheeler Yuta, because this was kind of the one team that was thrown together. And I kind of question, like, what's the deal with the Blackpool Combat Club? Are, because we knew for the BCC, it was Wheeler Yuta, Brian Danielson, John Moxley, and Claudio Castagnoli. But with obviously, I always want to call him Daniel Bryan, Brian Danielson in the main event, vying for the AEW World Championship against Swerve, they had to add somebody else to that team, and Pac was that guy. And they ended up, going with them as the winners. It wasn't the House of Black. I thought they really did a good job, looking at Black and, just I'm just wondering if that was the one team where I wish I would have saw more. I really look at them and think if Malachi Black and Buddy, I get confused when they just change one name, Buddy Matthews and Malachi Black. Could they have done more in that match? The Bang Bang Gang looking at the Gun Club, as well as Juice Robinson, more on him in a minute. And then the Patriarchy, I thought they stole the show, as they often do with Christian Cage and Nick Wayne and Luchasaurus or Kill Switch as they want to call him now. He's always going to be Luchasaurus to me. But I thought the two guys that stuck out in that match were two guys that weren't on the winning team, and they weren't even on the same team. But that's Nick Wayne, the young kid in the Patriarchy. You can tell that that guy has a really bright future. And when I watch Nick Wayne, it reminds me of the first time we saw Dominic Mysterio. Very, very raw, very, very young, but a guy that is really taking to the business like a fish takes to water. And he's in the right spot. He's with Christian Cage. He's in a story where he doesn't have to wrestle each week. And he's learning every single day what it takes to be a pro wrestler. And I like the spots that he had in this match. I thought it made him look strong. I think he's got an innovative offense. He's got that kind of Orange Cassidy type body build. We'll see if it'll pay off and it'll pay dividends down the road. Again, you look at how hot a guy like Dominic Mysterio is in the WWE, learning young, learning on the fly, learning, in the big time. That's exactly what I see from Nick Wayne. The other guy is Juice Robinson. And when you look at Juice Robinson, and obviously a little bit of a start and stop career in AEW with the injuries, but this was a guy dating back to maybe after his NXT days, but when he went to New Japan Wrestling, he's got something about him. There's an it factor to Juice Robinson, and I really hope that with he and James and Jay White and the Gun Club, those guys really get more of a push the second half of 2024. Because Juice Robinson, he's just a different kind of cat. His offense is different. His facial expressions are different. He's super intense, and he's engaged to Tony Storm, and you can really tell the way that they both operate as professional wrestlers, so dramatic and so over the top, and that you can tell the entire story by their facial expressions and their eyes. It's an it's no surprise that they fell in love. It really isn't. But I think the future is bright for Juice Robinson, and I hope one day that he really gets that push because he's eccentric in such a good way that he almost reminds me of kind of like how John Moxley was eccentric in the WWE when he was in Dean Ambrose. That type of thing where he's different than everybody else. I really hope he gets a push. Nelly, we're going to get to that in a second. I'm not going to put that comment on there, buddy. Not quite. But let's go to the next match, and that was the aforementioned Tony Storm and Mariah May. For me, this was the match of the night, or the match of the day, because it happened in the afternoon here. Match of the night over there, and I may not be in the majority when I say this, but Tony Storm and Mariah May stole the show. They were incredible. Tony's gimmick is just top notch. The black and white, old school. It reminded me of the Vaudevillians in the NXT, but she's playing like this damsel in distress from the early movie days in the 30s and the 40s. She has just absolutely crushed this entire story. Mariah May with that iconic pose of her at the top of the ramp, just hitting her with her heel over and over again from about a month ago, and Tony Storm is just bleeding. You want to talk about cinema. You want to talk about long-term storytelling. For anybody that says AEW has no type of long-term storytelling, show them this program. They crushed it. You look at it, Mariah smacked her mom. She smacked the shit out of her mom. Oh man, that was wild. That was insane. She crushed it. They kick out of each other's finishers, and then you look at the finish, and it almost looks back, and it almost reminds you of how the Roman Reigns Cody Rhodes story ended at WrestleMania 40, where Roman Reigns had the chair in his hand, and he was going to hit Cody Rhodes, but he looked at Seth Rollins, who was in the ring, and he hit him instead. That hesitation ended up costing him once again. And Tony Storm had that heel in her hand. She could have finished the deal. She could have put Mariah May down. She didn't. She hesitated. Mariah May comes back, hits her with a couple of moves, then hits her with her own finisher. And Mariah May is your new AEW Women's Champion. Fantastic. Unbelievable match. The second match of the night. I'm not talking about kind of the pre-show, no disrespect to them, but from the main card, second match of the night, Mariah May is a star. I would say she's a star in the making. She's a star. She is the top woman in AEW right now. She has ascended that ladder very quickly. She's a shooting star, and I think she's one of the best women in the world. She does not look out of place. She does not look like she needs more seasoning. She is on point right off the rip. And I thought Tony Storm looked insanely good in this match. That was the entire package. It really was. For AEW being one of those companies where people say, "Oh, it's all about the in-ring action." It's storytelling. It's about the ups and the downs. It's about the roller coaster of emotions. It's about, turning on somebody and just the back and forth. The That was the classic, right? The pupil turns on the teacher, and then eventually the young grasshopper wins the championship from the mentor. Like that was it was perfectly done. The entire execution of that was top notch. Congratulations to everybody involved in that match because to me, that was the match of the night. Next one up, FTW Championship between Jericho and Hook. Uh, listen, for Chris Jericho to be able to come out and do what he has done for pretty much his entire career, which is entertain. This dude is singing with Fozzy, his band, as he walks down to the ring, as he gets into the ring. Then he puts on another solid match and Hook wins the FTW championship. Taz, his dad, gets up. He's commentating the match. He gets up from the announce table. He goes and he takes out some of Jericho's help. And then you see Hook and Taz embrace after the match, which I thought was really nice because everybody knows that Hook is Taz's son. So it's, you don't have to just hide it. And I know you're trying to not be biased, but again, don't insult our intelligence. You see your son getting his ass kicked by three guys in the ring. It made sense. It made sense for Taz to go in there and be able to help out his kid, even if it was just the rear naked choke from behind. But shout out to Hook. He looks solid. Those suplexes are just like his dad. But has any wrestler in the history of pro wrestling put over more young talent than Chris Jericho? And I know you can go back and look at some of these other names and say, oh, it was this guy, it was that guy. Look at what Chris Jericho has done in WWE, in AEW, the two biggest wrestling companies in the world right now, and just look at all the young talent that he's worked with over the years and has put them over. There's an entire list, and he continues to do so. And he's creative, and he always finds a new way to present himself. He's just one of the greatest of all time. He is, and the fact that he can still go at his age and still find ways to not recreate his character, but put over the people that he's wrestling and also come up with different factions that elevate other talent. It doesn't get stale, it doesn't get boring. He has his finger on the pulse of what is hip, what is cool in professional wrestling. Shout out to Chris Jericho. He is the man. Next up, the three-way match for the tag team titles. Huge for the Acclaimed. Going up against Young Bucks and FTR. Solid match with a ton of high spots. Listen, there was not really much of a kind of a surprise in this match. Everybody got their stuff in, and then at the end, the Young Bucks retained. So not much of a surprise there. But then you see, as was once called the grizzled young veterans, they come out, they get face to face with the Young Bucks. Then they get into it with FTR. They had a nice little run in NXT. They really didn't do much when they got called up to the main roster for WWE, and now they're kind of back. And let's see, they're two menacing guys. They're from the other side of the pond, so they got a nice little pop there. That tag team division, you know who the top of the top, the cream of the crop is. They're in All Elite Wrestling. Can those guys step up and insert themselves into the title picture? We shall see. Next up, the Casino Gauntlet match. And for a guy like me who loves new gimmicks, loves new matches, I thought this was a little confusing. They really should have done a better job of explaining this to the everyday fan. And for a guy like me who loves wrestling as much as I do, like I got the premise, I get it, right? But you have to explain something that you're only going to do like once a year to people that are just tuning in for the first time or a casual viewer. And I look back at the way WWE explains the Royal Rumble. Everybody knows what the Royal Rumble is if you're some semblance of a wrestling fan. You get an idea, right? There's 30 people. They come out, every 90 seconds or so. Over the top rope is the way you eliminate people. 2 feet touch the ground. But every single year, they explain it. Usually it's our good friend Jackie Redmond explaining it, and they have numbers that go along with it. Hey, number 27 has the most winners, blah, blah, blah. Stone Cold's won it the most. Like there's a very in-depth explanation about it so that even if you're tuning into the Royal Rumble for the first time, you understand where they're coming from. That is what was missing tonight from the AEW Casino Gauntlet match. Because when I first heard it and I didn't really understand that somebody or Orange Cassidy won number one, and I'm like, why would you want to be number one in a gauntlet match? Shouldn't you be towards the end? Don't you want to be the last man standing? But then you find out, hey, you can make the pin at any time. So it's actually an advantage in some way to be in the match for as long as possible because you have an opportunity to get the pin. And OC starts off, looks good. I like the change and how he's wearing kind of like all black now instead of the standard white tee with the blue jeans. And he's kind of quickened up the pace a little bit so everything isn't like really super slow. And he's in there to start the match with one of the best professional wrestlers on the planet in Kazuchika Okada, who, when I look at him, I just wonder how he would look in WWE. I think that was a missed opportunity for him, for a guy that was long near the top of the PWI top 500. You're talking about, they rank all the wrestlers together. If you don't know about that list, we're talking about every wrestler. And Okada's up there. I mean, he was up there for years with the John Cena's and the Roman Reigns and all these guys. Um, and it's just, he's in a gauntlet match and All In, which is, their big pay-per-view. And I get it. I know he's the Continental Champion, but he's a guy, to me, he's top of the mountain type of guy. I wish that he had like a main event storyline. And I know he's with the Young Bucks. It's just, I feel like they're not making the most out of one of the best wrestlers of the world. Also, a little bit later, Nigel McGuinness comes out. And for Nigel, who we haven't seen wrestle in so long, crushed it in Ring of Honor for such a long time, does a great job at commentary, whether it's back with the NXT WWE regime or now with AEW. I thought he looked pretty good. He still has to, kind of brush some of that dust off, but really, really good stuff from him. And how great was it to see him and Zack Sabre Jr. go at it? That's British wrestling to a T. I've seen a lot of positive comments on Twitter from those guys. You're looking at kind of the last generation and the current generation. And Zack Sabre Jr., fresh off of winning the G1 Climax, he looks like a star to me with the jacket, with the ZSJ on the back. He is the best technical wrestler on the planet right now, bar none. It's not close. The thing that guy does on the mat, I just he it's incomparable. He's top notch. The things he does, the pinning combinations. Just go watch Zack Sabre Jr. highlights. If you don't know, now you know. He is a top guy, and he should be booked as such every single time. Hangman Adam Page comes out. He's looking pissed. And then a little while later, the last outlaw, Jeff Jarrett. There's a nice little kind of back and forth with those guys. And how good does Jeff Jarrett look? Phenomenal shape, great punches. And obviously, those guys squared off in the Owen Hart Classic there. And, you know, it's wrestling is so funny because you see guys that are in their prime, like an Adam Page, and a guy like Jeff Jarrett, who's obviously his best days are behind him, but he still looked good going to the ring. He still throws punches as believable as anybody in the game. And that chair shot that his wife Karen helped him out with when he smoked Hangman Adam Page with that guitar, it's still one of the best spots in all of wrestling. And we remember so many different people over the years to take that guitar over the head. And the biggest debut of the night, probably in this match, was Ricochet. So happy for him. Rumors online that he signed with AEW, and a guy that was, he had a nice run at NXT and with the big on the main roster with WWE. We just knew that's a guy that needed kind of a fresh coat of paint. He needed a change of scenery, and he goes to AEW, and they treated him like gold. Pyro mid match, he crushes it. He goes out there, he does all of these moves. He looks even faster than he did in WWE. He looks stronger. I like that he grew out the beard a little bit. I'm very interested to see what his first feud is going to be in AEW, because you need somebody to be able to accentuate those skills. I saw him beefing with Kyle Fletcher, Will Ospreay's buddy, online. Maybe that's a match that we see coming up on Wednesday on Dynamite. But so glad to see him. And another thing that stood out was how they were able to keep his name. I was sure that they were, because WWE puts such a high priority on intellectual property, and you have to change your name when you go somewhere else. Look, Edge is Adam Copeland, right? Daniel Bryan is Bryan Danielson. Um, and I know that's what he wrestled, before he got to WWE. But you just look across the board. There's just guys that change their name, And I was pretty sure that Ricochet was going to have to do the same, but he did not. Uh, Christian Cage comes out to the surprise of a lot of people because he wrestled earlier in the night in the trios ladder match, and he's selling the injury. He comes out, he's mixing it up. Okada with the best drop kick in the business. And who comes out later? I always want to say Luchasaurus, but Kill Switch. And it just because they teased a little bit of the beef at the end of the trios ladder match, and Kill Switch storms off. You're thinking, all right, here comes the crack in the foundation of the patriarchy. He's gonna go and do his own thing. Singles run for Kill Switch, and then here comes him out there. He looks like he's about to choke slam Christian Cage. He doesn't. He helps Christian win, and now he gets an opportunity to wrestle for the AEW World Championship. You love kind of the little fake face, baby face turn, and then switch back. Christian Cage is doing some of the best work of his entire career, and every single time you think that it's going to blow up in his face, he's just 2 or 3 steps ahead. And it's just the little things that he's done. He takes the championship off of Kill Switch and gives it to Mama Wayne. So the trios championship last week was Mama Wayne, Nick Wayne, and Christian Cage. Those are little things where he's even a heel to the people in his own group. Masterclass. He's one of the greatest mind games, one of the greatest manipulators in wrestling history, and I can't wait to see him get inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. Next match, one of the biggest matches of the night: Will Ospreay and MJF for the American slash International Championship. And this was Will Ospreay on display for everybody to see. Will Ospreay, in my mind, the best bell to bell performer in pro wrestling right now. The things that he does, the way he does them with tenacity and speed and intent, the way he sells it with his face, and there's nobody better right now. I would put Will Ospreay up against anybody, and I think it's a little bit of a crime that he's wrestling MJF for the American Championship. He should be at the top of the card. I don't think anybody can keep up with him. I think MJF did a decent job tonight, but I don't put those two in the same class. I think Will Ospreay is clearly above MJF. Maxwell Jacob Friedman has been pushed to the moon since he's joined All Elite Wrestling, and all these matches that he's been in, he's had his moments, but for the most part, the other guys, in my opinion, are making him look a lot better than he really is. And he can't cut a promo, or he can't go one match without cussing his brains out and spitting all over the place. It's just, I don't know. It's old, and it's like, it's not funny. The gimmick has gotten stale for me when it comes to MJF. And it's just the same thing over and over and over again. He's stealing people's moves. What did he do today? He did the Panama Sunrise, stole that from Adam Cole. He did the Rhodes, Crossroads from Cody Rhodes. Like, what's his skill set? What's the thing that he does? What's his finisher? Yeah, he's got the salt of the earth armbar, a Fujiwara armbar. Like, out of all the submission attempts, I think it's one of the weakest ones where you're just kind of leaning on somebody's arm. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get it. I know I'm in the minority. I know people love this guy. They think he walks on water. But I just think if you're a true heel, you should be a heel wherever you are. Um, Wherever you are. That's even if you're on Long Island as well. It's just the same thing over and over again. Him yelling, him cursing. Like, if I've always been the believer of, if you have to constantly use profanity to get your point across, then you need to like learn different ways to articulate yourself. I mean, cursing every once in a while, listen, I'm no saint, that's for sure. But it's just the same thing all the time. Just him yelling at the crowd, yelling obscenities. Like, eh, it's lame. It's lame to me. That's why I forgot who was it, CM Punk or somebody, when he called him like a knockoff Miz. Yeah. But you know what the Miz does? The Miz can yell at the crowd, and he can say, well, my hand goes up, your mouths go shut. But he can also be very quiet too. And he can make you lean in. And I don't think MJF has that in his bag. And they've put him in there with all these great wrestlers. And I don't come away from those matches going, wow, he's such a great in ring performer. I look at it and go, wow, the guys that he was in there looked way better than him. And if you believe something like this, you're just a hater of AEW. I don't think so. I just think I'm being honest. And people are just drinking the Kool-Aid when it comes to MJF. If you watch it just for pure wrestling entertainment, to me, it's always the other guy. It's never him. I thought it was a great part of the story to have Daniel Garcia come out to prevent MJF from using the brass knuckles, who can never seemingly win a match clean. And I get that you're a heel, but if you are as good as you say you are, you should be able to win certain matches just by being a better wrestler. Daniel Garcia comes out. Will Ospreay hits him with the Tiger Driver 91. And a great touch at the end. Christopher Daniels comes out. Will Ospreay doesn't even want to pick up that American championship. Christopher Daniels hands Ospreay the international championship, and that was a really, really good match. And yeah, I tip my hat to MGF. It was a good match, but Will Ospreay clearly on a different level. The next match, in my opinion, was the worst match of the night. Mercedes Monet and Britt Baker. Um, Mercedes messes up the slingshot backbreaker. The crowd wasn't into the match because it was obviously there was a letdown after MJF and Osprey. I'm amazed at how sloppy that Mercedes has been since she's gotten to AEW. It's such a crazy uh turn of events. It's not the same. She is not the same person that we saw in WWE, literally and figuratively. I mean, Sasha Banks and Mercedes Monet, like it's they're not even the same wrestler to me. And it's sad because I think she's got an abundance of talent. I think she's supremely talented, but there's just something missing. There's something that is not connecting, and it's not just me, it's the audience. And the only big pop that they really had was the power slam off the rope. So Mercedes did it the first time, and then the second time when she does it, Britt Baker did such a great job of kind of rolling with it, and she ended up on top with the slam. That got the crowd into it. But that was the single pop in that entire match. There were so many different little things that got messed up. Mercedes had kind of like the side suplex, and she tried to throw Britt Baker, and it was like a slingshot backbreaker thing. She had to do it twice because it didn't work out. Then Camille tries to do a rope break with Mercedes, and she kind of pulls her leg under the ropes. That fell flat, and luckily they never moved the camera angles so you could see, because it was kind of on a 45 degree, so it kind of looked like the foot was under there, but you weren't really 100% sure. Very smart not to show the camera angle there. And I thought the best part of the match was when Dr. Britt Baker pulled off the Eddie Guerrero, where she pretended like she got hit with the belt, and then she flat back bumped, and then she acted like she got hit, and the referee throws Camille out. And then not only does Camille get thrown out, but Britt Baker looks at the camera and waves to the camera. Awesome. That was the best part of the match. But here's the thing: it where when you're talking about logic, if the referee thinks Camille hit Britt Baker with the title, like shouldn't that cause a disqualification, right? Like it's that you gotta stay consistent with the storytelling here. And then the finish was Mercedes' move that nobody ever really understands what it's about, and it was just it just ended. It was a dud completely from start to finish, save for the Britt Baker Eddie Guerrero type thing. I thought Britt looked good. I think she looked solid. But who would have thought, if I would have told you 2 or 3 years ago, that Britt Baker would outperform then Sasha Banks, now Mercedes Monet? I don't know if many people would think that, maybe because Dr. Britt Baker has been probably the biggest female star the AEW has had, over its short career, or over its short tenure as a wrestling company. But it didn't connect, and Mercedes really has to take a look in the mirror and figure out what is going on, because it's not just me. I'm not hating. I want her to do well. I truly enjoy her, but it's not on. It is not on at all. All right, next match, the second to last one. It was Darby Allin and who was it? Jungle. I always want to call him Jungle Boy, but it was Darby Allin and Jack Perry. And Darby comes to the ring. He's got thumbtacks glued to his face. There's something you don't see every day. But Darby comes to the ring and he's like flipping off the camera. And like in my head, I'm like, isn't he a baby face? And how many people did we see like shoot somebody the middle finger tonight. It was just an overabundance. Again, I'm a ECW baby, right? I love that kind of stuff. But there just seems to be a lot of like copying of behaviors when it comes to AEW, where I really wish that people would watch other matches. Because if every single wrestler is flipping off the crowd or flipping off the cameraman or flipping off each other, like it loses its steam. And Darby, when you're a baby face, like who are you flipping off? It's one thing if you flip off Jack Perry, but you're flipping off the camera. Like, I don't know. So Jack Perry comes out, and one of my favorite parts of the match is they're outside the ring, and Jack Perry's like using the tape to tape Darby's hands together. And Rick knocks the referee. He's getting real close. He's got his hands on his knees. He's getting real close, and he's like, yeah, yeah. I'm like, what are you doing, bro? You're so into Darby Allin getting his hands taped by Jack Perry. I was dying laughing. I was like, you want to talk about getting into it. So Jack ends up winning the match. Darby loses, and they're gonna light him on fire. And then here comes Sting, chases him off with the bat. And then he goes in, double Scorpion Death Drop to the Bucks, who came out. Solid match, a shorter match than I think a lot of people thought, but I'm sure they were running low on time because they knew that the main event was coming up next. Bryan Danielson, Swerve Strickland, a really nice video package for Bryan Danielson with a lot of footage from home and from his time in Ring of Honor. And he comes out to a thunderous applause. And we all know that it was his career versus Swerve Strickland's title. And Swerve comes out and he was bopping. Fans were into the intro. Whose house? Swerve's house. And the weird thing about it was because before this back and forth between these guys, before this program started, Swerve was kind of like a baby face, I guess. And then he's definitely a heel in this. So I always find it a little weird. I'm the old school of if you're a heel, you should be hated by everybody. No redeeming qualities whatsoever. I want you, you know, doing heinous, horrendous things where nobody can cheer for you, nobody think it's cool. I don't want a cool heel. I don't want that at all. I want you pissing people off. I don't want anybody to think you're the man. Nothing. But if you're going out there and you're talking to the crowd, whose house, Swerve's house, you're getting the fans involved and they want to be involved in the show. That's what makes pro wrestling great. But that's not a heel. Like Finn Balor got rid of his entire, intro gimmick because, doing the hands here for a song because now he's in Judgment Day and he's a heel and he's a coward. He runs away. Like he doesn't do things that integrate with the crowd. So that's something moving forward. Like who's Swerve going to wrestle next? He's going to wrestle Hangman. I don't know who's the babyface, who's the heel. That's just like a personal rivalry. We know that he played the heel tonight because Bryan Danielson looked good, and then he was bleeding, and he's getting stomped right in front of his wife and his kids. That was just brutal, and a fantastic reversal of the cattle mutilation from Swerve Strickland being able to pick up Bryan Danielson and then kind of drop him on the top of his, top of his back, lower part of his neck. The doctors come in, they push him away, and Brian comes back, some huge smacks. The yes chants follow him. That's something that's never going to leave. He brushes off the knee. Excuse me. So they go on a little bit more in the match. He's fighting back. He's fighting from underneath. And I love that Brian Danielson hits Swerve the first time with his knee, his finisher. And Swerve literally brushes it off, hits him with the house call again. And you're thinking, uh-oh, here we go. This thing's over. But no, Brian Danielson bounces back. He ends up catching Swerve in a submission. He adjusts it, gets another submission on him. He is the AEW World Champion. The family comes into the ring, and they end the show with the entire Danielson clan, the kids, uh, Brian, Bree, even the guys from the BCC, the AEW Trios Championship. They even got Pac in there with Claudio and Wheeler Yuta. Just a really nice moment for a guy that has given his life to the business. And we thought that we'd probably never see him again. He was out for so long dealing with those neck injuries. He makes his return to the WWE and eventually transitions over to AEW. And now he's the champion. I believe the fourth champion fourth wrestler that's ever held both championships. Jericho, Moxley, CM Punk, and now Brian Danielson. Tip of the hat to him. I know there's a lot of people out there saying that he's the greatest pro wrestler alive. Um, to me, total package, it's still got to be Roman Reigns, right? It's all about drawing money, number one. Bell to bell, I give it to Zack Sabre Jr., but Bryan Danielson is not far behind. I think Seth Rollins is in that category. I think Okada's in that category. Kenny Omega, if he's not hurt's in that category. But wow, what a fantastic way to end the 4 hour pay per view. And let's give our flowers to Swerve Strickland. This is a guy that is operating at such a high level right now that I don't know if WWE really knew that he had this in him. They probably knew he was good. They probably knew he was talented. They tried to get him in there with the hit row stuff and really dive and lean into that music aspect of his life to really bring that into his pro wrestling career. But what he's been able to do at AEW and to ascend to the top of the card and to be the world champion, he's looked like a world champion. Love his offensive skill set. Love um, the battles that he's had with Hangman Adam Page. He did such a great job of kind of transitioning and leaning to that heel role in this feud with Bryan Danielson. This is a guy I don't want to hear anything about transitional champion. He did a fantastic job. It doesn't seem like the feud between him and Hangman Adam Page is subsiding at all because Hangman did come out there during that match. Good thing he didn't get involved. Did distract Swerve a little bit, but I didn't want to see him get involved in that match. Like that would have been weird. Like don't take anything away from Bryan Danielson. Like he should win that match like a babyface. Go in there, making the bad guy tap out in the middle of the ring just like he did Batista all those years ago at WrestleMania when he became the undisputed champion, and then he did the same thing here. Um, just a good match and a good day overall for AEW for all the things that they've done wrong, for all the things that they've really struggled with over the last couple of months. I thought they did a really, really nice job in this event at AEW All In. So, a quick takeaway from my highlights of the night. Uh, First off, it has to be the Bryan Danielson Swerve match. Awesome job. Great storytelling from both guys. Swerve putting his title on the line, Danielson putting his career on the line, and Bryan Danielson standing in the ring as the AEW World Champion. It was almost like a love letter to wrestling. His family being in there as well. A really, really great way to end the night. Also, Sting coming back still has that Sting coming back still has that star power, even though he's done with his in-ring wrestling stuff. Him just appearing and saving Darby Allin from that attack from the Young Bucks and Jack Perry, one of the spots of the night. Next, Mercedes and Britt Baker, really underwhelming for me. Mercedes is really missing with the AEW crowd right now. And I hope that she figures it out because there is a ton of talent there. I don't think that storyline with her and Britt Baker is over. Will Ospreay and MGF. Will Ospreay, in my opinion, the best bell to bell wrestler on the planet right now. And MJF, like doing what he does and getting people to boo him, and Daniel Garcia making his dramatic return. I really like the storytelling in that match, and Will Ospreay just proving why he is one of the best wrestlers in the world. The Casino Gauntlet match, really great to see Christian Cage win it and to continue his war path as he tries to win the AEW World Championship. We are looking very soon at a Christian Cage versus Daniel Bryan matchup. I'm sure it'll happen sooner rather than later. Great to see Ricochet debut in AEW and the return of Nigel McGuinness. Got to show love to guys like Jeff Jarrett and Zack Sabre Jr. as well. FTR and then the Young Bucks retain over FTR and the Acclaimed. Um, the Young Bucks continuing their dominance in the tag team division. Nicholas and Matthew Jackson, the grizzled young veterans. Where do they fit into the tag team landscape? And then Jericho and Hook. What happens with the FTW championship? We saw something online where it looks like Taz kind of alluded to the championship maybe running its course. Um, we'll see. We'll see Wednesday night on Dynamite. But again, a big tip of the cap to Chris Jericho for putting over young talent and for bringing up so many different wrestlers, whether it's an AEW, WWE. I don't think anybody in the history of pro wrestling has ever put over more people than Chris Jericho. So he is just an absolute asset to the entire industry, and he always finds ways to reinvent himself. So a shout out to a guy that lives right here in the Tampa Bay area and one of the greatest of all time, no doubt, Chris Jericho. My favorite match of the night, Tony Storm and Mariah May. Mariah May, the student beats the teacher. And this was, in my opinion, the best storyline and match put together. The execution, flawless. And Tony Storm continues to impress. And she did such a great job as the champion. And I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I could not say enough nice things about that match. And then the trios ladder match, I thought a really great way to start off the show. A lot of high spots, a lot of intensity. Nick Wayne stood out. Juice Robinson stood out. But the winners, Pac, Claudio Castagnoli, and Wheeler Yuta, where do those guys go from here? I don't know, but a very successful night for AEW, all in 2024. All right, follow me on all social media platforms at Recher as I take a sip of my green tea. Got to take a sip. Um, so let's move on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the cuts. And we know that there is going to be 35 cuts total, I believe. 35 cuts for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're trying to get down to 53. They're trying to get from 90 to 53. And we do know that Chase Edmonds and Rakim Jarrett have been put on IR. So we're not going to see them for a while, but you don't have to waive them. You don't have to get rid of them. So you just put them on IR and then you'll talk to them in a couple of weeks. But that bodes well for both of them. And especially because we know that injuries happen, right? But when you look at the guys that are on the list, and I'm going to read the list here for you in a second, and shout out to our guy, Greg Allman, for always being on top of it. None of these names stuck, are surprising. Running back Ramon Jefferson, Tanner Canoe, Raleigh Webb, Cephas Johnson, and Latrell Jones, the wide receivers. A couple of tight ends, David Wells and Sal Canella. Ryan Johnson and Xavier Delgado on the offensive line. Judge Culpepper, shout out to Judge. Brandon Matterson, the D lineman. Linebackers, Jay Pearson, Sean Peterson, and Kalen DeLoach. Kalen, great candidate to be back on the practice squad. He's not 100%. I know he got drafted by the UFL. Some people think that he's going to go there. I don't think so. I think he made an impression on the coaches here with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Don't be surprised if he is a guy that makes the Tampa Bay practice squad, stays here, learns from the KJ Britts and Levante Davids of the world. I don't think his future in the NFL is done, not by a long shot. Andrew Hayes, who had that really rough first preseason game against Cincinnati, he gets let go. A little bit of a surprise that Zach Schreiner, long snapper, has been released, and also Nolan Cooney, who they brought in as competition for Jake Camarda. Todd Bowles, if you listen to what he had to say on Saturday morning after the game Friday night, not too thrilled with Jake Camarda and the job that he's done. So I think that was a little bit of a kind of a warning shot. Like, hey, we're bringing another guy in here because we're not too thrilled with what you've been doing as of late. Hopefully, Jake Camarda figures it out. But the only real surprise, I guess, is Zach Triner being cut. 5 years he has been the long snapper for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're going to go with former Duke long snapper Evan Deckers. And from what our buddy Greg Allman says, practically a wasp. Deckers' base salary $500,000 less. Triner at $400,000 guaranteed on his deal. Chance to get a little bit younger for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Still waiting to see more when it comes to the cuts for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Not going to go super in depth because I know we're going to touch on it a lot tomorrow on Jay and Zach starting at noon on WDAE. So I just wanted to read off the guys that we know as of now. 18 Buccaneers cut. Yeah, and we wish the best to some of those guys, and hopefully they get picked up by some other teams because it's a sad part of the NFL where you see so many of these young guys. You know, some may never play in the NFL again. This is the closest they'll ever get to achieving that dream. And it's not something that we should really take lightly. And we've really gotten up to speed on what this means to certain players and certain athletes by watching Hard Knocks over the years and seeing the Turk go to each a lot of these young guys saying, hey, bring your playbook. So, yeah, shout out to all those dudes. And hopefully many of them could make a practice squad or make a roster somewhere else. All right, we're going to finish our Retro Reacts today, showing some love to the Lake Mary Little League World Series champions. 2-1 victory over Chinese Taipei in 8 innings to claim the title after a scoreless top of the 8th inning. The what do they call it? The runner on second base was there, and who was on that second base for Lake Mary, but young Lathan Norton, who was sick, missed the last game. He's out there after striking out to end the seventh inning. And he's on second base. And little did he know that he was going to be a part of history just a few moments later. Hunter Alexander bunts down the first baseline. And when the ball was picked up, it was thrown into right field. Nobody covered the bag at first base. Around third base comes Lathan Norton. He slides into home. Florida wins. The Sunshine State reigns supreme. Lake Mary wins 2-1 in 8 innings over Chinese Taipei. And you just saw the incredible reactions from not just the players and the coaches, but the families who have spent all summer traveling with these kids. As somebody that has done something similar, going to the Pony World Series back in, gosh, what was it, 2016? 2016? 2016? Was it 2016? No, it was 2000. God, it's so long ago. They were 2011. My gosh, it's getting late too. Back in 2011, we won the Pony World Series, and that entire summer that we dedicated to each other, and by winning, you give yourself memories that will last a lifetime. And those, it's not just the players, it's the families, it's the coaches. It's not just the players and the coaches, it's the parents, it's the families, the brothers and sisters, the aunts and uncles, the grandparents, the cousins, the friends. Everybody wins this one. And I think the biggest takeaway from this entire thing, and shout out to Jonathan Anderson and his entire crew at Lake Mary Little League, but if you go back and you watch how that game ended, there were so many of these kids from Chinese Taipei just bawling, crying, just inconsolable. But you see Coach Anderson, you see these players from Lake Mary going over to these kids from Chinese Taipei who are just heartbroken, and they put their arms around them and they're trying to cheer them up. Like, true class, true sportsmanship. And that is why you're world champions. Yeah, you scored more runs in a baseball game, but that type of attitude, that type of character that you show in a moment like that, that is way more of a lesson, way bigger of a lesson that you're going to learn um, than winning a championship in baseball. Because baseball, one great thing about it is it's a game of failure, and it really teaches you that you have to learn how to handle it. And things may not go your way, and there's going to be a lot more bad days than good. But if you can find a way to keep it together and persevere, you can do some incredible things. There's no sport that is a better analogy for life than baseball. And when you see these young kids that are from place not too far from here in the Tampa Bay area, the first team from Florida to win the Little League World Series, but to see the way that they conducted themselves after winning, consoling those players, tip of the hat to manager Jonathan Anderson, the entire crew over there. And you look at the other side, the coaches for Chinese Taipei, they declined to attend the the post game news conference. So that tells you all you need to know. You didn't just win on the field, you won off the field as well. So shout out to Lake Mary, Little League champs. You're probably going to be one of our stars of the weekend tomorrow on Jay and Zach at 1:45 on WDAE. And I implore everybody to tune in starting at 6 a.m. tomorrow with Pat and Aaron as they get things underway, talking probably about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers preseason finale against the Miami Dolphins. And then we're live noon to 3. Zach Blobner and myself on Jay and Zach. We've got Mark Topkin of the Tampa Bay Times at 1:30. Stars of the weekend as well. Little college corner at 12:45. Oh, Florida State. Zach is going to love that. Like and subscribe to everything I got here on YouTube. And make sure you follow me on all social media platforms at Recher. It's Sunday night. I got to go get some sleep, and you should too. We'll see you tomorrow night, Monday Night Raw recap, and all other things, sports, right here on Recher Reacts. Peace out.